In today's video, we're talking about how one of PlayStation's premier developers just got hacked, how it might actually be worth buying a Steam Deck OLED instead of a PlayStation Portal, and I give you my thoughts on the latest PS5 accessory that I actually really like.
Snake, are you okay? Snake?
How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and this is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. We have to talk about this insane hack that just happened at Sony because the implications of it are pretty bad for Sony, but ultimately pretty cool for us, I would say, as much as I hate saying that leaks are positive. We're just going to find out a lot of stuff about what Insomniac Games is working on way earlier than we were supposed to because a hacker was able to steal a ton of data from them, and they're auctioning it off. They're saying that Sony and Insomniac have 7 days to give them 50 Bitcoin, which comes out to millions of dollars, or they're just going to start releasing all this data, but they're also auctioning it off to the highest bidder right now. So regardless, someone is going to get this data, and eventually, if Sony doesn't pay the ransom, which it doesn't look like they're going to, it looks like a lot of this data is going to leak. So not only are we going to hear stuff allegedly about Wolverine, we're also going to start seeing leaks about games that Insomniac hasn't even announced yet, like potential sequels to Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, more Spider-Man games coming out. Like I saw one rumor that came from these leaks that said that there's going to be a Spider-Verse game maybe that Insomniac has started work on, and there's probably even more stuff. And because Insomniac is a first-party studio, we could hear news from other Sony developers that Insomniac might be helping out. So yeah, in terms of leaks from Sony, this is catastrophic, but I really don't know how to feel about this because one thing that really would have stopped these leaks from being as bad as they are is if Sony would just tell us what they're working on. It's gotten pretty dire over at the PlayStation HQ in terms of like them having things that are going to come out in 2024, going to come out in 2025 and 2026, but they just won't talk about it, which is absolutely crazy because next year, right now, all we really have to look forward to in terms of PlayStation 5 exclusives, the vast majority of it is not from Sony-owned studios. It's stuff like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Rise of the Ronin. There are some first-party things like Helldivers 2, of course, but in terms of like the scale and scope of games, Helldivers 2 doesn't come close at all to something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Rise of the Ronin or really any of the other big games that are coming out because it's not really a huge AAA game. It's a AA game at best. And the weird thing is we have had a ton of leaks where we know what Sony is working on for the most part, right? Like Knights of the Republic, that's out. That is not happening. It looks like that game is completely canceled. But beyond that, we know they're working on a new Twisted Metal to go along with more seasons of the TV show. They restarted development on it. They had the studio who made Destruction All-Stars working on that game, but then they kind of took it back and gave it to a new developer, so that's why that's taking a little bit longer. We know that it's basically guaranteed that Insomniac is working on Wolverine and of course some other games. We know Sucker Punch is working probably on Ghost of Tsushima 2. Sony Santa Monica is working on a new game that's not in the God of War universe, but they also teased that more stuff is coming after God of War Ragnarok's Valhalla DLC, which by the way, I'm hearing is absolutely phenomenal. I'm working double time this week so I can take some time off at the end of the year, and the first thing on my plate besides Baldur's Gate 3, I'm finally going to dig into that, is of course God of War Ragnarok's new DLC, because I'm hearing that it's like 6 to 8 hours. But yeah, the point is we don't really know what any of the big first party studios are working on, and for some reason Sony is being completely silent about it. And now, whether they deserve it or not, I don't think they do at all, they're being punished for not talking about their games by leakers getting their hands on this stuff. Like, it's a really bad and tricky situation where you have to play an even trickier game now on their side of the fence, where you've got to announce things early enough where people aren't going to see these things through leaks, but you also have to announce it late enough where you're not announcing it too early. I don't envy them at all on that point, obviously, but the thing that needs to be said is Sony games have a lot of cachet and they build a lot of hype and excitement. So I just don't understand why Sony is being so silent at the end of the day, right? Like, we had this showcase. I just put together a video that I'm going to post while I'm off over Christmas break that's like a recap of 2023 for Sony. We had that terrible showcase in the middle of the year where the only big releases that were announced during that was stuff related to Spider-Man 2. We got gameplay, of course, but also Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is a remake. And then there was just a few other things announced there, but the vast majority of it was like PSVR 2 games that no one really cares about, and then smaller indie projects. While they are cool, they're not really moving the needle in terms of excitement for Sony Sony and their PlayStation 5. So yeah, it really sucks to see Insomniac getting hacked like this, but honestly, I'm just hoping we get some news about what's coming out in the next couple years, what these studios are working on, because Sony won't talk about it. And the one thing I get excited for with the PlayStation 5 is first-party games from Sony. Like, something really weird is going on with their PR over there, where you have a showcase that announces a bunch of stuff no one's excited for, and then a week later you announce the release date for the PC version of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Like, something weird's going on there. We know they're working on cool stuff. Sony's just got to come out and tell us about it. Hopefully this leak is resolved, but yeah, I think this is going to go down as one of the biggest leaks ever, if things come out as it looks like they're going to. Like, this is going to go down with not only the Nvidia leak, but also the huge Bethesda and Xbox leak we just got a couple months ago. Like, leak culture in the world right now is absolutely insane. Next up here, let's talk about an alternative that you might have to the PlayStation Portal if you can't get your hands on one, or if you do have one and you want an experience that allows you to play games on the go while also streaming games remote play wise from your PlayStation 5. I'm of course talking about the Steam Deck OLED that just came out. I got this thing day one. I bought the limited edition model that's black and orange. It has been phenomenal. Even as someone who had the Steam Deck LCD and loved it so much and played it all the time, this thing feels like a legitimate upgrade, because on paper and in all the advertisements, they said that they just updated the screen, right? They were like, yep, we put an OLED screen in, it's 90 hertz, enjoy that. What they really did is they deconstructed the Steam Deck and improved literally every single part. The buttons are clickier, they register inputs better, the trackpads are better, of course the screen is better, the internet is faster in this thing, it runs games better because the chip is more efficient, it has bigger battery life, it has faster RAM. Like, there is not a single part of the Steam Deck, even like the case that comes with it has now like a Velcro flap that keeps it closed even if it's not zipped, and everything down to the charging cable, like that was increased in length by quite a lot. So Valve literally deconstructed this thing and made the perfect first gen Steam Deck. And one of the coolest things you can do with it now is use an app called Chiaki, which it's not that difficult to install. It's just like a little bit annoying, but once you get it installed, you can not only stream games to this thing from your PlayStation 5 over remote play, which is cool in itself, you'll also be able to stream games to an OLED screen that can take advantage of HDR. Now, when the OLED came out, the Steam Deck OLED, I mean, you couldn't stream with HDR, so while yeah, it would look better on the Steam Deck OLED than something like the PlayStation Portal, just by the virtue of having an OLED panel, it didn't look as good as it possibly could. And now you have a feature built right into the app Chiaki that allows you to stream gameplay directly to the machine with HDR. And because the console has Wi-Fi 6E, whereas the PlayStation Portal doesn't, as long as you're hardwiring your PlayStation 5 into your network, like your router and everything like that, you should get pretty much flawless results when streaming to your Steam Deck OLED. Now, there are a few caveats here ranging from minor to pretty major. The most minor one I would say is that the screen is 800p on the Steam Deck OLED, whereas on the PlayStation Portal, it's a 1080p screen, but the trade-off there, of course, is OLED, HDR, and the screen can run up to 90 hertz. Now, you're not going to really see that much of a benefit from 90 hertz running on this thing because the PS5 is outputting at 60 FPS max, but it is still cool to know that you've got a more fluid screen there. The other caveat that I think is big, though, is the fact that the PlayStation Portal has DualSense features. You don't get the haptic feedback, you don't get the adaptive triggers, you don't get any of those features really at all with the Steam Deck streaming from your PS5. I think I just said that the biggest caveat was that you're losing out on the DualSense features. The biggest caveat for sure is the price difference. You can't beat the price of the PlayStation Portal at $200 for what it does. I think it's at an extremely, as close to perfect as you could get price point for that kind of device. It does suck that after this generation, the thing is going to kind of just go away, but I don't know. I feel like handhelds don't have the longest lifespan ever, right? Like, you play the Game Boy, you play the Nintendo DS pretty much for their entire life cycle, then you wait a whole generation and get nostalgic for it and come back. You aren't really going to have that experience with the PlayStation Portal once you get to the PS6 or PS7, but by that point, we could have a real Sony competitor handheld that goes up against the Switch 3. The Steam Deck, on the other hand, if you want to get the OLED model, which at this point is the only one I would recommend, you're paying around $500 for it at the minimum, so that's $300 more for a device that can stream games that look better than they will on the actual PlayStation Portal, which is cool. But the other huge benefit you get there is that you can download and play native games on your handheld. Unfortunately, though, you're going to lose out on purchases you already made. So if you purchased Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Spiderman Remastered, and The Last of Us Part 1 on your PS5, you're going to have to rebuy them again on Steam, and your saves aren't going to transfer back and forth either, which kind of sucks, but you can get these games a lot cheaper now, where I don't think that's really that big of an issue, and also your trophies aren't going to sync. So if you're someone who has a massive library of games built up in your PS5, the Steam Deck automatically becomes a much harder sell, and that's totally fair. I pretty much split my time between my PS5 and my PC, so the Steam Deck is a no-brainer purchase for me, and upgrading to the OLED was also a no-brainer. But if you're someone who really wants to try streaming with a PlayStation Portal, like you've done it on your phone and you're like, this is the future, and you can't get your hands on a PS Portal right now, you're going on StockX, you're going on eBay, you're seeing that they're selling for $400, $450, it might be worth paying the extra $50 to get a Steam Deck and just set up Chiaki on that. Because for me, I think that is a really good alternative. I really have no horse in this race though. Like honestly, I'm not going to stream games to anything. I'd rather just sit on my couch and play on my PlayStation 5. And if I want to play a handheld game, PlayStation made or not, I'm just going to use the Steam Deck. I like playing games natively because no matter how good streaming gets, I notice the bitrate, I notice the latency. It's not really worth the headache at all for me. But if you're the kind of person who has kids, if you're someone who, you know, has to share one TV in your living room, like you've got roommates or something like that, I can definitely see why the PlayStation Portal is the perfect purchase for you. And the third topic I have for today's video is my thoughts on the Pulse Explorer earbuds, because I was actually able to get a pair. And these are very similar to the PS Portal in the sense that they're really hard to get. My buddy Jake over at Game Ranks, he had trouble getting a PlayStation Portal and he ended up having to buy one on Facebook Marketplace with his own money, which is kind of crazy. And I had to do the same thing with the Pulse Explorer. There's one key thing that I think a lot of the outlets that reviewed these things already missed with them, and that's that the fit of the headphones is the most important factor here in terms of whether or not they're going to sound really good for you. Because when I took them out of the box, the packaging is really nice, by the way. You have the like Apple style slide tab, then you take off the top half of the box and the little case, or big case really, is just sitting right there. You slide it open, you pop them in your ears and you're good to go. Once I did that, the tips did not feel very good, right? There wasn't a seal, the active noise cancellation kind of sucked, the audio sounded kind of like tinny and washed out. I took the ear tips out of the box, I found the right fit, and once I did that, the sound from these headphones improved about 1,000%. Like, it's honestly kind of insane how much better they sound, or in the reverse, how much worse they sound if they don't fit. Once you find that fit, these are bar none the best headphones I've used with my PlayStation 5. And I have very extensive history with headphones on the PS5. I've tried the Pulse headset, I have the InZone H7, which was my default before these. I've tried the Razer Hammerhead Pros, which they have a hyperspeed version that I'll talk about a little bit later that might be a contender with these, but I didn't really have the greatest experience with those overall. I've had Beats Studio Buds, I've also had AirPods Pro 2, and yeah, I think these are my favorite gaming headphones I've ever used. Now, if you haven't heard of these before, the thing that makes them gaming earbuds is the fact that they don't use Bluetooth, they use PlayStation Link, which if you have a PlayStation Portal, that's going to connect without an adapter. They're just going to connect to that handheld right away. But if you don't have a Portal, like you have a PS5, a PC, or a Steam Deck, you use an included USB adapter. And this was a big upgrade for me personally, because I mentioned I was using the Razer Hammerheads before because I like earbuds, because the bridge of headphones kind of pushes my head down and gives me pain on the top of my head, and I don't want one of those skull dents that streamers get over time. I just like earbuds overall, and I was using the Razer Hammerheads. They have a low latency gaming mode. It's good enough, but when you're watching cutscenes in games, you can really see the audio desync on people's lips. I hate that. And also when I'm watching music videos on YouTube or something like that, you see the audio desync just enough where you notice it. So I was kind of looking for new headphones, and so I was looking at the Razer Hammerhead Hyperspeeds that come along with the dongle. I'm glad Sony released these because this dongle works perfectly, and these headphones fit a lot better than the Razer Hammerheads for me, and they sound a lot better as well. Even though they're a PlayStation product for the PlayStation 5, they actually have really good battery life. That was a little bit of a mean joke, I'm sorry, but yeah, PlayStation accessory battery life is terrible, whether you're talking about the Portal or the DualSense or the DualSense Edge. These things have great battery life, and the fact that they have a charging case that you put them into when you're done with them means that as long as you keep up with charging that little case, you know, about once a week or something like that, I think you'll never run out of batteries with these things. I was using them on my PS5 to play some Diablo 4 last night, then I moved over to my PC to play some Fortnite with my friend Dustin from Sacred Symbols, and then we were just chatting all night. I probably used them for around 6 or 7 hours all told, and I never charged them once I took them out of the box. So they shipped with enough charge to use them for a full night and never get any sort of battery warning, which is great. They're also surprisingly comfortable. Like when you pull them out of the case, it's like, how are these going to stay in my ears? But once I slotted them in after finding the right fit, they were totally fine. And it is cool that they have that PlayStation sort of look to them. The little case looks like a PlayStation 5. They have white sort of like half circles around them with a PlayStation logo. When you slide the case open, it's got a nice satisfying click. And even though it's plastic, it feels very premium. And there's a a light on the case that changes blue when you're pairing them, or it changes green or yellow depending on what battery life the actual little headphones have. And I think it is a flaw in a sense that the case is so big, but these aren't meant to be your everyday earbuds. These aren't meant to be like your WF-1000 Mark Vs or AirPods 2. These are strictly meant for gaming. And for that purpose, I think they do their job perfectly. The one big oversight here is that the dongle uses USB-A, so if you have a PS5 Slim and you keep it in an entertainment center, if you want to plug in that dongle, you're gonna have to get to the back of your PlayStation 5 because the PS5 Slim has 2 USB-C ports on the front. It's kind of crazy that Sony had this console in the works, and not only did they release these headphones with an adapter that's USB-A, but their premium flagship controller, the DualSense Edge, the 9-foot cable that comes along with it, that's also USB-A, and it looks terrible when you plug it into the back of your console and have to snake it around. So hopefully down the line, Sony releases either like a dual connector sort of version of this USB adapter or just a straight up USB-C one. But that's really the only flaw I have with them. I didn't get any ear pain when I was using them. I thought the sound was amazing. They're really saying that these planar drivers that they have give you a full soundstage, and they totally do. I'm pretty sure they work with 3D audio because it sounded like it was working in the menu. And finally, if you have a DualSense Edge, these are one of the only wireless headphones I think you can get that allow you to use the FN keys to actually change the volume of them. But if you don't want to do that, or you don't have a DualSense Edge, the little volume rockers on the actual headphones work great, and they don't fall out of your ears because once you find the fit, the seal is perfect. So yeah, get a pair of these, try them out with the ear tips. If you can't find the right fit, that's when you could consider returning them. But I think these are a great accessory for the PlayStation 5 overall. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.